Like, I think Dayquil's just a sugar pill. I know that's not true, but in my heart, that's what I believe. That's one of the things that I believe that I know isn't true. I don't take Dayquil. I stopped taking Dayquil years ago. I just take NyQuil during the day. I power through.
What? Why?
Because it actually fucking works.
Dayquil also works.
I've never felt like Dayquil did anything for me.
Welcome back, citizens of De Niro Nation, to Our Hero De Niro, the only podcast that's watching and recapping Robert De Niro's entire filmography in random order. I'm Mike, and with me as always is my co-host, Mike.
No relation.
And today we're taking a break from discussing Robert De Niro's filmography to instead bring you our Oscars 2026 special, where we're ranking every Best Picture nominee, and trust me, we have thoughts. Mike, how excited are you for this year's Oscars?
I am pretty excited for this year's Oscars. You know, I mean, we'll get into this, I guess, throughout our discussion of the 10 nominees. I think overall, though, this is a pretty good year. I mean, there's always stinkers, right? There's stinkers every year. But there were several films this year that I really, really enjoyed and that I'm looking forward to discussing. And there were enough that I really disliked or thought were mid that I think there will be a lot of opportunity for kind of rage bait in the show as well, when something that I really disliked inevitably wins some award that that I don't think it deserved. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to look forward to this year. What about you?
Yeah, I think this has been a relatively strong year. I'm really looking forward to it because a few years ago, I think starting in 2023, we made a commitment to start watching all of the Best Picture nominees each year. And that has really enhanced my enjoyment of the Academy Awards. Feels like you have some skin in the game, right? Yep. I'm really excited to get into our rankings, what we hope wins, what we think will win. And so just structurally for this episode, we're going to go in alphabetical order, covering the 10 Best Picture nominees. Those are Begonia, F1 the Movie, Frankenstein, Hamnet, Marty Supreme, One Battle After Another, The Secret Agent, Sentimental Value, Sinners, and Train Dreams. We'll provide a little bit of context about each film and then get into our thoughts and ratings on each of them before getting into our final rankings and a couple of letters from listeners. Mike, are you ready to kick us off with Begonia?
Yes. So I guess I will start off with Begonia. So the first film in our alphabetical discussion order is Begonia, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. This film stars Emma Stone, Jesse Plemons, Aidan Delbus, Stavros Halkias, and Alicia Silverstone. And in this film, gentleman by the name of Teddy, played by Plemons, kidnaps a lady named Michelle, Emma Stone, the CEO of a pharmaceutical conglomerate whom he I probably should have tried reading this out loud after I wrote it before just going into it totally cold here. In this film, Teddy, played by Plemons, kidnaps a lady named Michelle, played by Stone, who's the CEO of a pharmaceutical conglomerate whom he conspiratorially suspects of being a member of an alien species known as the Andromedans, who are attempting to subjugate humanity. This is a really intense psychological thriller with elevated horror overtones. Mike, what'd you think of Begonia? And I'm also kind of curious, I'm sure you will talk about it, I'm certainly going to, but certainly curious what you think about Yorgos overall, because I have a lot to say about him.
Yeah, I know you're going to have a lot to say about him because we both watched Poor Things a few years ago because it was one of the Best Picture nominees, and neither of us really liked it. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I think in retrospect, it's really more of a 3, but whatever. And you felt inspired by that movie to watch more of his filmography, whereas I did not. I was all set with Yorgos, but you watched this film, and I think you spoke pretty highly of it before we decided we were going to do this as a special, and so that inspired me to watch it. So I have to say, I went into the film pretty guarded, mildly skeptical, just based on how little I liked Poor Things, and I was pleasantly surprised. This is honestly one of the biggest positive surprises of all of the nominees for me. I was incredibly captivated by this film. It's a really tightly contained, slow burn thriller. It's a really strong acting showcase, particularly for Jesse Plemons, who we always love to see, right? On film and TV, whatever. He elevates everything he's in. And it was very stylistic.
Even Zero Day.
Oh, even Zero.
Which you may recall, I forgot he was in last time we discussed him on the podcast.
And I forgot he was in it this time, so there you go. It's stylistically bold without feeling indulgent, and I think it works on multiple thematic levels. I think what really works here is it's contained structure. It almost kind of feels like a bottle episode kind of story. And I think that confined narrative increases the tension. I also love the ambiguity because I didn't know that this was based on a South Korean film. So I didn't know where the story was going to go. I found it absolutely enthralling. And, I went into it really wondering, is Emma Stone's character actually an alien, or is this some sort of delusion? Also, visually speaking, the cinematography here is really striking. Both its use of the 4:3 aspect ratio, as well as its use of extreme wide angle shots. It did a really good job of creating a sense of claustrophobia and unease, and it didn't look like anything else this year. So I thought that was really cool and unique. So overall, I'm coming out hot, and I'm giving Begonia a 4.5 out of 5. A really strong start to this year's nominees. It's a Yorgos film that really worked for me. And it honestly does make me more interested in watching some of his other films. What about you, Mike? What did you think of Begonia?
Yeah, I really love Begonia, as you kind of alluded to in your description of it. And I am not a Yorgos fan, as I know I've discussed on the podcast before. So let me talk a little bit about my experience with Yorgos. To your point, we watched Poor Things the year that it was nominated for Best Picture and really did not enjoy it. Similar to your having given it 3.5 stars, which for you is your gentleman's 3. I gave it 4 stars, which is my gentleman's 3.5. So I think in retrospect, it was not a 4-star film from my perspective. There's a lot of incredible artistry on display in Poor Things, and you see this in a lot of Yorgos's films. I've seen 4 of them, including Begonia, but I find it just really kind of narratively and thematically hollow. And that's the way that I feel about the others of his films that I've seen as well. So I've seen Poor Things, Begonia, Kinds of Kindness, which was his film from 2024. And I went back and watched The Lobster, which is kind of the classic Yorgos film. And there is a cynicism to his general vantage point as an artist that really does not agree with my sensibilities. I find it kind of off-putting, and there's just a vapidness to that kind of cynicism for me that I really don't enjoy. And I think that in a way, Begonia doesn't have quite that same cynicism, which is something that I enjoy about it. Everything else that you said is really true as well. I really hadn't thought when I was preparing to give this little piece earlier today about the cinematography, specifically the aspect ratio. But you're right, it does have a 4:3 aspect ratio, which I think did help, given that, to your comment, it is kind of a bottle episode type film. Most of it takes place inside of the house, where the kind of main thrust of the plot is happening. And that way that it's shot really helps to convey the confinement and the sense of claustrophobia the characters are feeling in the house, which is really, really cool. What for me, I think makes Begonia work better. I guess I'm really theorizing, makes Begonia work better than other Yorgos films from my perspective is kind of 2 things. One, I think it helps that he's adapting strong source material. I've never seen the Korean film, but he's a very stylish guy, right? He's obviously a very talented artist. And so I think if you give somebody like that well-trod, good source material to adapt, it's likely going to turn out really good. And I alluded to its elevated horror overtones. You and me have very diverging opinions on elevated horror, but this was produced by Ari Aster, and I think that you can see Aster's influence in this film. It has a lot of feelings of horror. It kind of feels like watching Hereditary, honestly, in a lot of ways, like the claustrophobia, the general feeling of being trapped. There's this segment around the middle portion of the film where the tension is really building for like 5 or 10 minutes, and it feels like hours. It's so uncomfortable, just the uncertainty about what's going to happen. And, you can kind of visualize what you're going to see visually as events transpire, which is really horrifying to imagine. It's just really powerful. I will say, for me, you want to spoil movies in this podcast?
Not really. I don't think
in this episode any. You don't really want to. The ending didn't really work for me thematically. Oh yeah, I struggled with that a little bit. Yep. So for me, that's kind of what results in my score. This could have been a 5-star for me, but I fell off a little bit on the ending, and so this one is a 4.5 from me as well. But I love this movie. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, 4.5s all around for Begonia.
Begonia.
I guess that leads us into our second film of the evening, F1 the movie. We actually already previously discussed this a bit in our 2025 A Year in Movies episode, but
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit, where I called it the most aggressively fine film of 2025, but I digress. F1 the Movie is a high-octane racing drama directed by Joseph Kosinski, best known for Top Gun Maverick, and starring Brad Pitt alongside Kerry Condon. The film follows a washed-up former Formula One driver who's pulled back into the sport to mentor a young team and chase one last shot at glory. Shot with real race cars during actual Grand Prix weekends and designed for premium formats like IMAX, the movie was praised for its immersive racing sequences and technical craftsmanship. It performed strongly at the box office and quickly became positioned as a prestige blockbuster contender, ultimately landing a Best Picture nomination. Mike, what did you think of F1 the Movie?
I mean, listen, I liked F1 the movie. Who didn't, right? I mean, it's totally aggressively fine. To your earlier comment, there's a lot to like about it. It's really cool how practical so much of what is done is. Brad Pitt is so cool in the role. We've talked about this, right? You and me are both recording while wearing our AirPods Max. This film, as I'm sure Tim Cook hoped it would, inspired you and me. I would assume hundreds or maybe even thousands of others to go out and buy AirPods Max. So it clearly worked as a seller of a very high quality premium product that Apple advertised really heavily in the film. With Pitt's usage of them. It's got really nice cinematography. Hans Zimmer's score is really propulsive. Kerry Condon is great in her role. It's just, I don't really remember it very well, and that's not a good sign. We only saw it like 9 months ago. Yep. Yeah. I remember Caroline sat down and watched it, because she is a part of our erstwhile commitment to watch all the Best Picture nominees as well. And she sat down and watched it maybe a month and a half ago. And I stood there in the living room with her and watched maybe 5 or 10 minutes of it. And I was like, man, I don't remember any of this. Like, it really did not make an impression on me. But it is a nice film. And I think it's nice to see Apple putting out something that is this high quality. But it certainly is no Top Gun Maverick as far as Joseph Kosinski is concerned. And for that reason, I give it 3.5 stars.
Oh, wow. You downgraded it.
Yep.
You originally gave it 4.
No, I don't think I did. I think you were wrong about what I gave it. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it says 3.5 on Letterboxd. So.
I might be misremembering then, but I distinctly remember at some point you mentioned we were talking about what our prospective ratings for the film were going to be, and I said this is a 3.5 star film, and you said I was being too hard on it.
Well, maybe you convinced me. I don't remember that conversation, but I never changed the rating, so 3.5 is just what I see when I look at Letterboxd.
I am a very convincing person.
That's true.
Yeah, I think you said it well, and I stand by what I said earlier in the podcast, that it's the most aggressively fine film of 2025. I originally gave the film a 3.5 out of 5, and I stand by that rating. And my question here that I ask, not just to you, my co-host, but to the world at large, and perhaps maybe the Academy specifically, is how is this a Best Picture nominee?
That's a great question. There are films I like less, films that are lower on my ranking than F1, that I understand, whose place in the nomination list I understand better than F1. I really do want to understand, like, what is it about this that makes it one of the 10 best films of the year? Very odd.
Because at its core, F1 the movie is a very technically polished but emotionally hollow crowd pleaser. It's so extremely formulaic. It's elevated by its craft, its cinematography, its practical stunt work. That's all great. But the story is so predictable that I think it's to the film's detriment. It's the ultimate dad wish fulfillment fantasy that's dressed up as a prestige blockbuster because the budget was just so damn high. I think it feels like a prestige film because it looks expensive, but there's nothing to it. When it comes to Joseph Kosinski, I think I complained about him a bit in the 2025 Year in Movies episode, but the only Joseph Kosinski film that I genuinely love is Top Gun Maverick, and he's also directed films like Oblivion and Tron Legacy. But when it comes to Kosinski, my general impression of him is that he's very visually slick, technically precise, but emotionally sterile and occasionally boring. It's so rare that I feel anything during one of his movies. When it came to watching F1 the movie, we watched it with some friends in IMAX, and it's very successful as an IMAX or premium format viewing experience, but I feel no urge to rewatch it on my home theater setup. When it comes to the story, every beat was telegraphed, there were no narrative surprises, and the emotional arcs felt really manufactured. And I think compared to Top Gun Maverick, Top Gun Maverick is honestly the only legacy sequel ever that I've enjoyed, that I think is actually good. And it's because that story dealt with, themes of legacy, mortality, and regret. And F1 just doesn't. Like, Brad Pitt just plays super cool, late middle-aged, fit guy who
he just gets to win.
He just lives this super cool lifestyle.
We are spoiling
right?
F1 the movie. He wins.
That's all he does.
Big surprise.
He just lives this cool life, going from race to race around the globe in exotic locations, and then he's hired by this F1 team to help them out, and he does, and he's super cool, and he has sex with Carrie Condon, and that's a 2.5 hour long film.
Yep, and he wears AirPods Max.
Yeah, so I guess it succeeds at what it sets out to do, but there's no emotional weight, there's no thematic depth, and there's no rewatch desire. So for that reason, I'm giving it a 3.5 out of 5.
Beautiful stuff. Well said.
Now it's time to hand it back over to Mike to talk about Frankenstein.
This was Guillermo del Toro's attempt at Frankenstein. It stars Oscar Isaac, Jacob Elordi, Mia Goth, and Christoph Waltz. And we know about Frankenstein, right? If you are a citizen of De Niro Nation, and really probably even if you're not, but especially if you are, you know about Frankenstein because we've done a Frankenstein film for this podcast. Dr. Victor Frankenstein, played by Isaac, is inspired by his childhood experience with his mother's untimely death to try to create eternal life in the form of the creature, played by Jacob Elordi, whom we colloquially refer to in pop culture as Frankenstein's monster, or whom you colloquially refer to in our pop culture in De Niro Nation as Da Monster. Del Toro set out to make a particularly faithful adaptation of Shelley's novel, but I talked to Caroline about this. Careful listeners will recall that she was on the pod with us several months ago when we did the Frankenstein episode and read the book to do a comparison. And she said actually the Kenneth Branagh version was more of a faithful adaptation of the novel in terms of its kind of adherence to the overall Frankenstein cultural canon. But my sense, doing a little bit of research earlier today, is that in the context of Frankenstein overall, this is still an unusually faithful adaptation of Shelley's work. So yeah, I don't know. That's it. Everybody knows about Frankenstein. Mike, what did you think of this film?
I'm going to present possibly one of my hotter takes this episode, and I'm just going to straight up say that Frankenstein was my least favorite Best Picture nominee of the year. By far.
Not that hot of a take, just so you know.
I think
it's not my least favorite, but I'll talk about it, but I really don't like it. So
yeah, I think it's a hot take. This film has an average rating of 3.8 out of 5 on Letterboxd, and it is a Best Picture nominee. So I think it's a pretty hot take. I think my rating's also pretty hot, which I'll get to in a little bit, but I am genuinely baffled by this film's nomination.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like one of those cases where you have prestige director, classic source material, and so it is just a foregone conclusion that it's going to be nominated. But I think it's honestly a misfire on almost every level. I couldn't believe it when I was watching it.
I'm so happy that you and me agree about this.
Well, so here's for context about this movie, Del Toro, this is a passion project for him. And a lot of his other films like The Shape of Water have, deal with similar themes about, physically unattractive monsters and being accepted. And I don't know, there's the one where the fish man has sex with a woman. I don't know, whatever. So
Isn't that Shape of Water?
Yeah, I guess that's the one. I didn't actually see it, but I know it's about a fish man who has sex with a woman. So Frankenstein is certainly thematically aligned with his sensibilities about monsters as misunderstood beings and romantic goth and melancholy. But just because he's invested in a project doesn't necessarily make it good. So my core problem with this film is the question why. Because Frankenstein is a story that has been adapted countless times. As you said a few minutes ago, we did an episode on an adaptation of Frankenstein, the 1994 Kenneth Branagh film, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So this is a story that everyone knows. It's been in the pop culture milieu for 100 years. And I think if you're going to do it again, if you're going to adapt this story again, you either need to offer a bold personal thesis on the story or invert the perspective or radically reinterpret it. And from my perspective, Del Toro doesn't do any of these things. So the result is the story fell emotionally flat. It was predictable in a way that drained tension, and there's no sense of discovery. And it's 2.5 fucking hours long. Oh my God. So long. Yep. I think when it comes to the performances, I felt that Oscar Isaac was miscast, and I love Oscar Isaac, so it pains me to say that. I think Jacob Elordi was fine as the monster, but He wasn't really physically grotesque. He was just like smooth and pale. He kind of looked like one of the...
He just looked really handsome, like Jacob Elordi, but with some fucked up shit on his face.
Yeah, he looked like one of the engineers from the beginning of Prometheus. You remember those? Yeah.
I feel like this is the second or maybe even the third time that you have compared something visually to the engineers from Prometheus on this podcast, which is very funny. But you're right.
I think that he didn't feel repulsive or tragic enough. And the breaking point for me, where I really want to lay into this film, what would like knocked it down a half star for me at least, were the visuals. I hated how this film looked. It had a very storybook quality to it because it leaned extremely heavily on CGI sets. And some people might like this, but to me, this shit looks so garish and artificial and distracting in a way that honestly reminded me of late period Tim Burton more than anything. It felt like watching an old Linkin Park video in certain points. There's this moment, without spoiling anything, because it's a story we already know.
Fucking spoil.
Right.
It's Frankenstein.
When the monster is on its own in the wilderness, it meets a deer and has an interaction with nature, with this animal. But in this movie, the deer is entirely CGI and it looks so distractingly fake that I just thought to myself, this is Del Toro's carte blanche project with Netflix. Why didn't they use an animatronic, some sort of puppet or something, for this scene where you're seeing a close-up of him interacting with a deer? It broke the immersion for me. I couldn't believe it. I just thought this film was so overly long, self-indulgent, didn't justify its length, and honestly, maybe this is a hotter take for you. I think that the 1994 Kenneth Branagh film, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, is a better adaptation and a better film than this one is. I think it was more emotionally resonant. I like that it relied more on practical filmmaking, and despite its goofiness, it felt more alive within its 2-hour-long runtime. So I struggled to understand how that film wasn't nominated in 1994, but this piece of dreck was in 2026. So I don't know. I give it a 2 out of 5. I think it's the worst nominee of the year, and I just don't think history will be kind to this one. But what do I know? Mike, what did you think of Frankenstein?
I fucking hated this movie. It really blew me away. I would never have expected to hate it as much as I did, honestly. It's really, really bad. I will say that I don't think that I find its nomination as confusing as I find F1, though. I liked F1 much more than I liked this film, but it's Guillermo del Toro.
Sure.
You know, so like at least it like kind of makes sense. You know, it's like one of the beloved Hollywood darling directors getting to do his passion project. And I'm sure that they marketed it really, really well to the Academy, who we know don't watch a lot of the films. So it's possible that it just got nominated on those plaudits, I guess. But no, this movie is really, really bad. I don't have much to add beyond what you said, to be honest, but I do want to seize on two particular bits. So the first thing is you referenced how terrible it looks, and it's awful. It's the ugliest movie we saw of the nominees this year. It's kind of unbelievable how bad it looks, honestly. And I was trying to justify this to myself while I was watching it. How did you watch this film? Did you watch it on the projector?
No, I watched it on my iPad.
Okay, so you watched it the way that Netflix actually intended for you to watch it, because that's my theory, right? So I watched this on my giant 77-inch TV. And while I was watching it, I could not believe there was this one part where like the like tower that he's doing his experiments in is like collapsing.
Yes.
And there's this exterior shot where there's like a panning shot of the building collapsing. And I was like, this is the fakest looking shit I have ever seen in my life. It completely took me out of the emotion of the scene. But my general theory watching it was, oh, well, this is a Netflix film, right? And they intended for people to watch it on their phone, because this film does something else that I hate actually even more than I hate bad visuals, which you've referenced. There's a lot of expository dialogue in this movie, and there's a lot of retrospectively expository dialogue, which is a storytelling device that you will notice Netflix especially employing in their films, where they can tell people watching aren't really paying very close attention to the movie. And so they've got to pepper in some characters saying some shit about their motivations or about something that happened from an expository perspective that would never actually happen either in naturalistic conversation or in a well-written script. It happened like at least 6 or 7 times during this film, and it completely took me out of it. When I think about the films that Netflix had a hand in this year that we watched, I think they are The Secret Agent, this one, Frankenstein, Train Dreams, and Jay Kelly. None of the others are really as egregious as Netflix films, I think, as this is. This felt like the most Netflix film to me that we watched this year, and I really hated it. Yeah. I don't think it's worse than the Mary Shelley's Frankenstein movie from the 90s, though, honestly. That's where I'll diverge from you, but I definitely do like it less. This isn't getting a heart from me. I gave it 2.5 stars. I thought it was really bad, but not quite as bad as you thought it was.
Yeah, I gave Mary Shelley's Frankenstein a 3 and Del Toro's version a 2, so big discrepancy.
It's pretty, yeah. I gave Kenneth Branagh's a 2 and this 2.5.
Yeah.
But this is a really, really bad movie. I was really surprised. Like F1's inclusion is confusing to me just because there's nothing about it that I think is notable. It's actually bad.
Yeah.
Like it's really weird. Like it's actually just a bad movie. And I do think you're right that history is not going to remember this film kindly. And similar to, I think, the way we already look back on Emilia Perez as an embarrassing nominee for Best Picture a couple of years ago.
God.
I think a couple of years from now, we're going to be looking back on Frankenstein and thinking like, what was the Academy smoking when they nominated this film for Best Picture? It's really ridiculous. So there you go.
I like Del Toro. I love Pacific Rim and Blade 2, and this movie did not have the juice. You mentioned Jay Kelly earlier. How upset are you that Jay Kelly wasn't nominated for Best Picture?
I gotta tell you, man, after watching fucking Frankenstein, I'm pretty upset. When the nominees came out, I hadn't watched Frankenstein yet. And so I was like, well, I don't know, Frankenstein might be good, right? To your point, like I'm not a huge Del Toro fan, but he's a great director.
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe it's going to be really good. Like, sure, whatever. But now that I've seen this, and there's one more that we're going to discuss that I also really, really loathed.
Ooh.
I actually am kind of upset about Jay Kelly's absence from the nominee list. And I guess based on your ratings, you too would have far sooner nominated Jay Kelly for Best Picture over this, even with your more tepid take on it than mine.
Yeah, I gave Jay Kelly a 3.5 out of 5. It wasn't really for me, but I thought it was a good movie.
It at least looks really nice.
It looks nice.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't look like dog shit. It's a beautiful film. It doesn't look like CGI dog shit.
Jay Kelly is a beautiful film. At least if it's not for you, you can appreciate the great performances and the beautiful cinematography.
Yeah. Let's move on to our fourth film of the night, Hamnet. Hamnet is a historical drama directed by Chloe Zhao and starring Jessie Buckley and Paul Mescal. Based on Maggie O'Farrell's novel, the film imagines the emotional aftermath of the death of William Shakespeare's young son and explores how that grief may have informed the writing of Hamlet. Set in late 16th century England, the film leans into intimate domestic drama rather than literary biography, focusing on family, loss, and the way art can emerge from tragedy. It was widely praised for its performances and cinematography, earned strong reviews during award season, and positioned itself as one of the year's more traditional prestige contenders en route to its Best Picture nomination. Mike, what did you think of Hamnet?
This was the one I really hated more than Frankenstein.
Oh, shit. Okay, let's go. Hamnet time, baby.
I cannot fucking believe how much I hated this movie. So let me talk about the things that I like about it before I talk about the things that I didn't like about it. Number one, I thought Jessie Buckley was incredible. What an amazing performance. I find her completely spellbinding. She is a woman of almost singular charisma and beauty, and she delivers a great performance in this role. She's really, really good. Number two, I like some of the music. I thought the score was nice. I enjoyed some of that. I do. A.A. Dowd had a review of this. Did you read it?
Yeah, I must have.
He writes in his review, and I quote, "Moratorium for the love of all that's good in this world on the nature of daylight." Do you know On the Nature of Daylight? Do you know what that is?
No.
So this film's score was done by Max Richter. You know who Max Richter is?
Oh yeah, he's a Leftovers guy.
He did the Leftovers score, yes, and he's an incredible composer. He's not just a film score composer, but he is kind of similar to Philip Glass, I think, like one of the notable modern composers of classical style music. And so his most famous piece is called On the Nature of Daylight. And it's something that is used... when you use it, it's how you know that you're watching a bad movie. When you see it in a movie, it's the song that plays during the climactic scene where Jessie Buckley is watching the performance of Hamlet toward the end of the film, and that they're just really trying. Zhao, she's really trying to play your heartstrings a little bit. But besides that, I really enjoyed Richter's score, and I thought it was nice. And cinematographically, beautiful film. One of the most beautiful films we saw this year. Really vivid greens. It's a film that has a lot to do with Tudor architecture, was something that I really enjoy. I don't know if you like Tudor architecture, but I nice. Really, really do. Yep, I love like warm tan stucco houses and nature, and I really enjoy that as well. A lot of deep, vivid greens in a really, really nice way. And that's where the nice things I have to say about it stop. This kind of fanfic dreck to me is like, it's some of the absolute worst that fiction as an art form has to offer from my perspective. I don't know how much you know about Shakespeare, but the answer is probably not very much because we don't know very much about Shakespeare. We don't know any of this shit about him. The things that we know about Shakespeare and his wife Agnes and his children, including Hamnet, are when they were born and when they died and when the two of them were married. And the idea that Zhao and the novelist who wrote the book on which this film was based had to anchor this story to the life and legendary work of one of the small handful of greatest writers of the English language, to give it any kind of emotional resonance. The fact that the emotional resonance that the film has hinges upon essentially these actors getting to chew the scenery and perform scenes from Hamlet on stage toward the end of the film is the most artistically and intellectually vapid thing that I can possibly imagine. And it's just really terrible, and I hate everything about it. And I also really hate the way that it's paced. I think the fact that the inciting dramatic event in this fictionalized version of Shakespeare's life does not take place until 2/3 of the way through the runtime of the film is totally egregious. Once it happens, it renders the entire first 2/3 of the film totally emotionally moot for me. And, oh yeah, wow. I really hated this movie. I thought it was really horrible, and I almost couldn't believe how much I disliked it. And I'm going to give it 2 stars because there is a lot to appreciate about it artistically, but it's totally hollow as a kind of cohesive unit and story. What about you, Mike? What did you think about Hamnet?
God damn. Okay. It's Knives Out for a Hamnet. Well, you had previously watched another Chloe Zhao film. Zhao film? Chloe Zhao?
I think it's probably Zhao. That's how that's usually pronounced.
So you had previously watched another Chloe Zhao film. You watched Nomadland before, right?
Yep. I didn't like it.
You didn't like it, right? I didn't. I've never seen. Yeah, I've never seen any of her films before. This is my first Chloe Zhao film, and I watched it very reluctantly. I actually, there was a day when I was set on going to our local independent movie theater, The Little, with the intention of just getting Hamnet over and done, out of the way. Yep. And at the last second, I pivoted, and instead I watched No Other Choice, projected on 35 millimeter film. And
seems like a much better film.
Oh man, I definitely made the right choice there. Great film. I gave that a 4.5 out of 5. But it's something about just the trailer and the premise. It screamed Oscar bait, this period prestige drama, just the combination of like you said, like grief plus dead child plus literary icon. And I think that in general, I'm pretty resistant to the historical revisionism angle of things and those sorts of, quote unquote, serious awards core narratives. So I went into it with the expectation that this is going to be a really boring and self-important film. And I actually found it a lot more engaging than anticipated. I liked this film.
Really?
I liked Hamnet.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, man.
Okay. Really?
The tagline for Hamnet is "Keep your heart open," and I think that maybe your heart, wasn't open enough, man, for Hamnet.
I think my heart was pretty open. I wanted to like it.
I'm not saying I loved the film. I'm not going to name my first son Hamnet or anything like that. A little Hamnet
it's
back
not a very
at you.
good name.
It's
yeah.
It's honestly, it was pretty fucking funny. Honestly, where the movie had to start with a little like disclaimer saying, in medieval England, Hamnet and Hamlet were the same name. And I was like, then just call the kid fucking Hamlet. Why are we doing this at the very beginning? But whatever, I digress. Listen, it's fundamentally not my thing, but I thought it was a solid, well-crafted film. Like, I really respect it for how well it did what it was doing. It's just that what it was doing was something that I don't really care for. It was definitely occasionally heavy-handed and awards calibrated in a very, what's the word I'm looking for? You could tell that Chloe Zhao is like, she's angling for that Oscar. She made this movie because she wants that Best Picture award. But I think to its credit, it mostly earned its emotional beats and it didn't feel entirely manipulative to me. And I think there's a tension there that was interesting to explore. Like, yeah, Jessie Buckley's really great. She's really good, but I think she might be the front runner for the Best Actress nom, but that's the sort of performance that it's so outwardly showy and intense where, I don't know, it's just everything this movie is doing feels like it's really playing to the Academy. I'm not saying she's bad, just that, again, it's all very calibrated. Now, Paul Mescal, on the other hand, he does nothing for me. How do you feel about Paul Mescal in general?
I nothing him in general. I thought he was nice in this role, but I will never think about him again.
Exactly. Yep. And that's how I felt about him in Gladiator too. He just, I don't understand what it is about this current crop of A-list male film talent like Paul Mescal and Glenn Powell and these sorts of stars. Like, what happened to the Arnold Schwarzeneggers, Dolph Lundgrens, and just people who, Brad Pitts, people who had the juice.
We do have a lot of great female leading ladies right now, don't we? Like, we just talked about Emma Stone a few movies ago. She's got to be like one of the biggest kind of like highly talented female movie stars right now, and she's incredible. Yeah, and I love her. Every time I get to see her in something, I consider it a gift. I do not feel that way about who's the other guy who we talk about all the time. He was in the stupid fucking Stephen King adaptation. Running Man. Or is that a Stephen King book?
That's Glenn Powell.
Right?
It's Glenn Powell.
Glenn Powell. Yeah, we talk about Glenn Powell all the time. Like, I'm sure he's a nice guy. He's a fine actor.
Sure.
But like, I don't get it at all.
Yeah. Where this film elevates itself for me, because I think about films as a whole, the whole audio-visual experience. I absolutely loved the cinematography. By the Polish cinematographer Lucas Zal. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing his name. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he also did the cinematography for The Zone of Interest. Another film with incredible cinematography. And that pedigree shows here. Yeah. Yes. I thought it was absolutely spectacular in this film. It was so lush, intimate, and painterly. And it really added to the film's emotion without being garish. And oh my God, the contrast going from discussing Frankenstein to this film, like, both are period pieces, but one looks so artificial and CGI heavy and grotesque, and this one felt so tactile and grounded in a way that I think actually enhanced the storytelling of the film. When it comes to the narrative structure of this film and the Hamlet parallel, we'll talk more about this later, but I think the back half of this film mirrors what Sentimental Value is doing structurally. And this film isn't doing it as well as that film does it. But I kind of liked the angle of Shakespeare processing his grief through writing Hamlet, and the whole angle of art as a sort of grief transmutation. I think it worked well overall. I just think that Chloe Zhao is like she kind of thinks the audience is a little stupid, because when Jessie Buckley's character is watching this unfold on stage, there are moments where she like tells the audience, "Oh, this is what William Shakespeare's doing in the narrative." And I'm like, okay, fuck you. I'm not that dumb. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how smart the average Academy viewer is, but it was a bit on the nose. But I don't know. I found it emotionally affecting. I was engaged. I thought the pacing was very controlled and deliberate. I never felt bored, but it wasn't transcendent or anything. I really respected and admired it for its craft more than anything, and I'm giving it a 3.5 out of 5. I thought it was a good film.
I'm very happy for you.
Yeah, I don't know. Really nice. I'm really surprised. Yep. The way you described Hamnet is how I thought I was going to feel about Hamnet when I watched it. Yeah. But
we kind of flipped roles here a little bit.
Yeah, we did. Inverted.
I expected to give it 3.5 stars going in.
Really?
Yeah, it just seemed like a 3.5 star film for me. Like, yeah, that's what it seemed like it would be. I love Hamlet.
Yeah.
So like I was primed to like it. We've talked about Hamlet before on the podcast, and Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, talking about Kenneth Branagh. But I really disliked it.
Yeah, I guess I just kept my heart open, you know?
Yeah, I guess so. I'm just not good at that. I should try to be better.
Well, now it's time to move on to a film that we'd previously discussed in an episode of All Mic'd Up, Marty Supreme. Mike, tell us about Marty Supreme.
Marty Supreme was directed by Josh Safdie, and this one stars Timothy Chalamet, Gwyneth Paltrow, Odessa Zion, Kevin O'Leary, Tyler Okanma. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name. Abel Ferrara and Fran Drescher. And this is a heavily fictionalized, quote unquote, biopic of a real table tennis superstar named Marty Reisman. Chalamet plays him as Marty Mauser. In 1952 New York City, he's an extremely talented table tennis player who dreams of winning the British Open by defeating the defending champion. He hopes to bring American attention to the sport as its assumed standard bearer. That's a very funny question to ask. Mike, what'd you think of Marty Supreme? We did an entire episode about it.
Well, sure. You know, I previously gave this 5 out of 5 on our episode of All Mic'd Up. I'll be sure to link to that in the episode description. And there's no hiding it. This is my personal pick for Best Picture this year. I've seen it twice in theaters now. I saw it the first time with you and wife of the pod, friend of the pod, Caroline. And then I watched it again with Philip, a.k.a. Lips. And, you know, it's just, we've talked about this. Safdie films, they feel like they're made for me. Marty Supreme is tense, it's entertaining, it's funny, it's electrifying, it's a thrill ride from start to finish, and it hits my cinematic sweet spot, which is just that it has that sense of perpetual anxiety and escalating chaos that I really love. It's just such a volatile film in a way that I think a lot of people find exhausting, but that I find exhilarating. The new sort of commentary that I want to bring to this discussion about Marty Supreme is I have noticed a clear arc in the collaborations between, well, Josh Safdie specifically, but the Safdie brothers and Ronald Bronstein, who has been the co-writer for Good Time, Uncut Gems, and now Marty Supreme. So within the last week, I actually watched the 2007 film Frownland, which was both written and directed by Ronald Bronstein. It's a really low-budget independent film that follows this it's like social pariah named Keith. And I noticed this clear arc that developed over the course of all of these films, starting with Frownland and then moving to Good Time, Uncut Gems, and Marty Supreme. And it seems like over time, the films and the protagonists become more palatable to mainstream audiences. So you haven't seen Frownland yet. I mean, I don't think many people have. It's only available on the Criterion channel. So without spoiling anything, I'll just say that the protagonist in Frownland is totally repugnant. He is completely unbearable. He's alienating by design, and he's like almost anti-audience. He's just so abrasive and unpleasant that you would not want to spend a single second around that person. Then you move to Good Time, and, you know, Connie, played by Robert Pattinson, he's charming, but he's a sociopath. He's only looking out for himself. You know, he claims to be looking out for his brother, but he's so manipulative and self-serving and morally bankrupt that, you know, you could probably have a good hang with him, but you wouldn't really want to be in that guy's close social circle because he's going to fuck your life up. And then you move to Uncut Gems, and we kind of talked about this too, where, you know, the character of Howie, played by Adam Sandler, he's still a disaster of a person. You know, he's a self-destructive gambling addict, but he's warm and charismatic, and he's very lovable in spite of himself. And I think that works in that film because that warmth makes the tragedy hit harder. And then Marty Supreme, we move over to this character of Marty Mauser, who's younger, he's more impulsive, but I think he's a more accessible protagonist. And I think that really reflects the fact that in many ways, Marty Supreme is the most mainstream film that Safdie and Bronstein have constructed, which I get and I enjoy watching, but it still doesn't hit as high for me as Uncut Gems. And I kind of put it on par with Good Time in terms of my overall rankings here. Because they're doing such different things. I think they're both 5-star films, but in different ways. And I don't know, sure, Chalamet is fantastic. The craft elements, the cinematography, the set design, the costume design, that period setting is done so well. I love the choice of anachronistic 80s songs used throughout the film's narrative. And of course, Daniel Lopatin's soundtrack we raved about. It's absolutely fantastic. And I can't believe it's not nominated for Best Score this year.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
It is. Offensive. It's really ridiculous. But it's a film whose only issues are just that it's a little over long. I think it could be trimmed ever so slightly, but I love it from start to finish. And I have nothing but good things to say about Marty Supreme. Mike, what about you? What do you have to say about Marty Supreme this time around?
I have so little to add. I mean, I didn't do any additional research for Marty Supreme before we did this episode. It's a pretty smart idea, considering that it was essentially formulaically determined to be the film that we had the least to say about, without finding some other material to mine. I love this film. It's it's really, really good. I'm not sure how I feel about it relative to Uncut Gems, but I think I probably like it a little bit more, honestly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but what I like about it is more sensory in nature than I think it is substantive. I think I like the story of Uncut Gems better, and the character of Howard I find a little bit more compelling than the character of Marty. But I really, really love Marty Supreme's warmer color palette.
Yeah.
And slightly more filmic quality. Uncut Gems is very cold. It's very sterile. It's very blue. And when I watched Uncut Gems about a week after we watched Marty Supreme, and that was what I was really struck by as I contrasted the two films, was how much more clinical and sterile Uncut Gems feels just from a sensory perspective than Marty Supreme does. But they're both incredible films, and I love Marty Supreme. I give it 5 stars. What else is there even to say? It's an incredible film.
Love it. And now it's time to move over to our 6th film of the night, One Battle After Another. One Battle After Another is an epic political drama written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson and starring Leonardo DiCaprio alongside a large ensemble cast. Set against the backdrop of rising extremist movements in America, the film follows a volatile central figure navigating ideological conflict, personal reckoning, and shifting alliances. Known for its sweeping scale and a majestic score by Johnny Greenwood, the film is praised for its ambition, performances, and technical craft. It performed strongly during award season and was widely viewed as one of the year's major prestige releases, ultimately securing a Best Picture nomination. Mike, what did you think about One Battle After Another?
Yeah, I really like One Battle After Another. I mean, right? What's there not to love? I think that Paul Thomas Anderson is an almost singular modern talent in filmmaking, and I think this is one of his stronger films from my perspective. I really enjoy Leonardo DiCaprio's performance. I think it's really something very special. But I think that what I would highlight is Sean Penn's performance, actually, and just how he really disappears into that role. We talk a lot. This is one of my funniest. For me, the funniest kind of bits that we tend to fall into on this podcast. We talk a lot about Instagram reels that I see of movies.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's a big thing on my Instagram. My Instagram algorithm is very heavily populated by film clips, I think, as like an orienting framework. And so I see a lot of film clips of Sean Penn's performance in One Battle After Another. And just what a really captivating performance it is. He's so weird. Like, what a weird, skeevy, horrible guy he is. Something that I see often is the scene of him when he's about to have the meeting with whomever he's hoping will recruit him into his crazy white supremacist sect that he wants to join, and him kind of licking the comb and then using it to comb his hair. And it's just so gross to me. Like, I bet you he's like kind of smelly, and so I really enjoy Sean Penn's performance. And we saw this in IMAX, and I found it really breathtaking cinematographically. There's obviously one scene toward the end, that kind of final climactic car chase with the wide angle shot of the cars driving over the crest of that hill, which I think is what usually gets referenced by folks when they're talking about how strong the cinematography is in the film. But there are so many shots in the film that I really enjoy. I really enjoy the setting at the what's the place where nuns live called? Convent. Yep. It came to me a few seconds after I asked the question. A large portion of the final act of the film takes place at a convent. And I feel like there are some really beautiful, both wide angle shots of that space, as well as shots at various angles and things like that of inside of the building where a lot of that kind of core drama is taking place that I really enjoy. And we also get a lot of great face shots in this film of Penn, of DiCaprio, of Taylor, of all of these folks. And finally, I guess I would just say Benicio del Toro is really special in this film too, isn't he? He's so funny, like as the kind of world-weary, kind of rebel, I guess, as it were, kind of Underground Railroad type guy. And I often see another clip that's him talking about having drank a few small beers.
Oh, that's good.
On Instagram Reels. That's a really, really good line. In general, I really enjoyed One Battle After Another. I think that if you hold it up in contrast to something like Marty Supreme as another film that I think was really, really highly critically acclaimed this year, it just left me feeling a little cold relative to something like Marty Supreme. And so while I recognize its technical wizardry and perfection as a kind of discrete unit of art, it doesn't quite reach that height for me. And so I give One Battle After Another 4.5 stars. What about you, Mike?
I respect the rating. I think that this is not peak Paul Thomas Anderson, but it's still one of the best movies of the year. For context, I haven't seen every PTA film, but in my top tier, there are films like There Will Be Blood and Punch Drunk Love. And I think this falls into the second tier alongside Magnolia. And then way lower, you have The Master. I think The Master sucked. So like you said, it was a really great
Something
IMAX.
you and me agree on.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. It was a really great IMAX experience. It felt like it was built for large format viewing just because of that grand scale and that sweeping cinematography. That was really great and immersive. I loved the score by Johnny Greenwood. I think it's my second favorite score out of these films besides Marty Supreme's by Daniel Lopatin. And thematically, I appreciated its timely commentary on white supremacist culture. It felt very politically current, and it wasn't subtle, but it also wasn't simplistic. The way it engages with radicalization, identity politics, and cultural paranoia. So I appreciated that it was a confrontational film in that sort of sense. It wasn't Hamnet doing historical revisionist period drama grief work or whatever. It had something to say about the current moment. DiCaprio was fantastic. Chase Infinity getting a lot of buzz. She was good, but I think she was kind of a weak link in the film because she's 25 years old and she looks 25 years old when her character is supposed to be 16 or whatever.
16, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. That really honestly took me out of the film, but whatever. I guess it is what it is. Sean Penn was really good. I liked how heightened his character was. He honestly kind of felt like a live action Looney Tune in a way that was very entertaining. Yep.
The comb thing is very like Looney Tunes-esque, isn't it? Like it's very cartoonish. Yep.
It's a little overlong. It has this big sprawling narrative, but I really appreciated the unpredictability of it. And I do wonder if that would maybe negatively affect it on a second viewing, like knowing that, okay, this is 3 hours long and I kind of know the beats already. But that first viewing in IMAX was absolutely electric. I appreciated how massive and ambitious it was. And I also give it a 4.5 out of 5.
Well said. It's a great movie. Definitely one that deserved to be nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah. Not like Frankenstein.
Or Hamnet, from my perspective. That being said, you only gave Hamnet 3.5 stars, so maybe you don't think it deserved to be nominated for Best Picture. That's not a Best Picture score, honestly. All right, so I guess we are moving on right now to The Secret Agent, right? I am going to totally butcher this gentleman's name, the director of The Secret Agent. Do you know how to pronounce his name?
No, because he's Portuguese, right? Portuguese is a crazy language. It's like fucked up Spanish.
I feel really bad. He's obviously a very talented director. I've never seen any of his other films, and so I apologize. I'm certainly going to mispronounce his name. I think it's probably Kleber or maybe Kleber. Mendoza. When the C has that little accent at the bottom of it, that means it's pronounced like a CH, right?
I think so.
Mendoza. Is there a phonetic pronunciation on... Oh, it doesn't sound like that's the way it's pronounced. Oh, well, God, I don't know. Kleber Mendoza Filho. And I understand Filho is like, it's a little bit of a diminutive. That's the Portuguese version of Junior, actually. So that's not actually a part of his name. Is the director of this film, and he is a lauded Brazilian filmmaker. And this one stars Wagner Moura, Carlos Francisco, Tania Maria Ribeiro Diogenes, Maria Fernanda Candido, Gabriel Leon, Alice Carvalho, Hermila Guedes, Isabel Zua, and Udo Kier. And this one is about this gentleman named Armando. During the Brazilian military dictatorship of the late 70s, moves to Recife during the carnival holiday, where his young son has been living with his in-laws since Armando's wife's death. He joins a refuge of fellow political dissidents and becomes progressively involved in their operations while he is hunted by assassins employed by Henrique Garatti, who was formerly the executive director of Eletrobras, which was at the time, it's now it's no longer publicly owned, but at the time it was the state-owned electric utility in Brazil. Mike, what did you think of The Secret Agent?
Yeah, I liked this film. I respected it, but I never felt fully pulled in by it. I think that had to do with my expectations versus reality. I went into this film totally blind. I only watched it because it was nominated for Best Picture. And based on what little I had seen about it, I expected a more traditional spy narrative with some classic espionage tension and plot-driven thrills. And instead, what I got was a slow burn historical political drama that was, more about mood than momentum, and it subverted my expectations, but not necessarily in a way that elevated my viewing experience. It's been described as a neo-noir and historical political thriller, and I think the thriller label feels overstated here. It's a real slow burn. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes long. And I honestly, I feel like it was kind of dramatically inert at certain points. I felt that some scenes lingered without escalating the tension. And I think that if they figured out a way to trim the film by 20 minutes, it would really heighten the thematic impact and tension. I think part of it is the socio-political context here. It's set against 1970s Brazil, and that backdrop is clearly foundational to the film. But I don't know anything about that point in Brazilian history. And I wonder if I would appreciate or like the film more if I did know a bit more about the socio-political context there. Like, the performances and craft were all excellent. Everyone was really good in the film. It looked great. It was very restrained and technically well made. There were some surrealist moments that didn't totally land for me. They just kind of felt like they were padding the film's runtime. So maybe I just wasn't in the right mind for it. It was engaging enough when I was watching it, but it wasn't deeply immersive, and it didn't stick with me after I finished it. I was kind of tired by the time it ended. So I'm landing on a 3.5 out of 5. There was strong craft on display. There were good performances. And I did honestly find the political premise interesting, especially the longer it went on. But yeah, good, not great. 3.5. What do you think, Mike? What did you give The Secret Agent?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's funny. It sounds like you and me really followed sort of parallel tracks with this film. So in addition to knowing that it was a political thriller, I watched the trailer for this film before I watched it. And I feel like it completely misrepresented what it was going to be like. Not only was this billed, I think, in the popular consciousness as being a political thriller, but the trailer really played up the degree to which it was going to be thrilling. And so I found myself really unpleasantly surprised, especially in the first half, by the pacing and by how not thrilling it was. But then for this, and I really do want to acknowledge this, right? Because I think this is a great film. So much of especially the first half, when so little is happening, I think relies on historical, political, and cultural context that you and me are just completely missing.
Yeah.
We're talking about stuff that was happening in another part of the world 50 years ago, in a country of, really very foreign culture, I think, to ours, that we just never had any reason to learn about before watching this film. Like, I had never read about Brazil's military dictatorship before I read about this film. After watching it. It sounds really interesting. I feel like if you were Brazilian, this would be an incredible film because, to your point, the artistry on display is incredible. Moura is amazing in the role. He has such a good face, and I can see myself having really, really enjoyed it if I hadn't been missing that cultural and political context in the first half of the film, and if I hadn't been so surprised by how slow the pacing was. Like, here's something that I read about, for example. So while we were watching the film, right, so there's a plot device in the film that's about this leg that gets eaten by a shark, and it comes to life and goes to a park and assaults people. Do you know what that's about?
No.
So it's really interesting, actually, what it's about. So when I saw that happen in the film, I was like, what the fuck? Like, it felt like totally out of step with everything else in the film. But I did a little bit of reading about it afterwards. And so that is a reference to something that happened during this military dictatorship, where there would be these acts of violence and these crimes that would take place in urban areas that had a banal cause, essentially related to the regime, the ways it was subjugating people, economic distress, like whatever. But the regime would come up with these fantastical stories for what they'd say was happening, like almost this extended mythologization of the regime itself. And so my understanding is that if you're a Brazilian person, you would understand that as shorthand for something that people understand happened in the media during this period of history. But that's like totally lost on people like you and me watching this film. And so I feel kind of bad how tepid my response is to it, because I think it's probably a great fucking movie. I mean, there's a lot to love about it. The performances are really, really good. It has incredible cinematography. It's a beautiful film.
Yep.
Amazing color, really, really good shot framing, a very almost kind of like propulsive rhythm, especially to some of the second and third act events that do have slightly more of that kind of thriller pace that you would expect. And I did find the conclusion reasonably emotionally affecting. So I feel kind of bad that this is one that's falling kind of low on the list for me, but I too need to give it a 3.5. I just really didn't appreciate it while I was watching it.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, you know?
All right. And so now, Mike, I guess it's time to talk about Sentimental Value.
Sentimental Value is a Norwegian family drama directed by Joachim Trier. Trier?
I've been saying Trier.
Great.
But I could be mistaken. Yeah.
And
I've talked about him on the podcast before, and I've said Trier. So.
And starring Stellan Skarsgård, the film centers on an aging filmmaker attempting to reconnect with his estranged family, using art and reenactment as a way to process unresolved trauma and grief. Intimate in scope and restrained in tone, the film explores memory, legacy, and the complicated inheritance of emotional damage across generations. It premiered to strong critical acclaim, with particular praise for Skarsgård's layered performance and the film's measured pacing and visual precision, eventually emerging as one of the year's most respected international contenders and earning a Best Picture nomination. Mike, what did you think of Sentimental Value?
Oh, man. I fucking love everything about Sentimental Value.
Wow.
This is an incredible film for me. I guess I'll highlight some things about it that I really enjoyed. Number one, the cinematography, incredible. This is a film that makes a lot of use of kind of the contrast between inorganic and organic objects, which is something that I find really pleasant. It features this house really heavily, right, as a major visual motif in the cinematography, and I really, really love just the way the house looks. I really enjoyed all of the shots of the house, and there's this motif that the film employs kind of in the last act, where the house transitions from having kind of a wooden, organic layering look to it to something a little more postmodern and sterile. That is a visual contrast that I really enjoy. I really love Hanya Rani's score. It's very subtle and very understated, and it's just really beautiful music that I don't think really takes up too much space in the film, but really enhances everything that's happening on screen. And I really love Trier's direction, and especially Renata Rinsev in the lead female role. I'd never seen her in anything. I really love her. I think she's incredible. And I was very delighted to watch The Worst Person in the World after I watched this, which I think is a vastly inferior film.
Oh, really? I haven't seen it.
But it was still really nice to see her, and nice to see another film directed by him, by Trier. He's really talented. And I've talked about this on the podcast as well. I think I probably talked about it in the year in review, but I find Skarsgård's performance in this film completely transcendent. I mean, he is an incredible actor, but the layers to his performance, we talked about this actually in the Ronin episode recently, about him acting as that character acting, but he does acting as this character acting really, really well, and in Sentimental Value, and it's really something very special. And I really love the what's Elle Fanning's character's name? Rachel.
Can't remember.
I really like the Rachel Kemp character. I think the film, it really does a very brave thing by choosing not to depict her in at all a villainous light, even though I think she's somebody who could be in a weaker story portrayed villainously. And I find that really powerful. And for me, you know, this is kind of at the nexus of essentially everything that I like thematically, right? Like this is like a film that's kind of like created for me, almost like in a lab, right? It's about family drama. It's about regret. It's about aging. And it's about,
very J. Kelly coded film.
Yeah, very, very J. Kelly coded film. Yeah, it's kind of like a better J. Kelly, really, really in that way, isn't it? Yep. But something that I really, really love about Sentimental Value in contrast with J. Kelly is, without getting into too many specifics to spoil it, this film has a very positive, very optimistic ending. And I really enjoy its rejection of cynicism. Relative to something like J. Kelly, that I think is a very steadfastly cynical film with an extremely dark and joyless ending. That I found totally gutting. And so, yeah, I don't know. I really love sentimental value. I found it incredible. And I was just really very pleasantly surprised by it. I didn't think that I would like it as much as I did. What about you, Mike? What do you think of sentimental value?
What do you give it?
Oh, sorry, 5 stars.
Okay. All right. Wow. Okay. A second 5-star has hit the podcast. Yeah, I thought this was an excellent film and I admire it deeply, but I think it resonated with me more intellectually than emotionally. It has such a controlled, precise tone to it. It's very Scandinavian in sensibility. And it's disciplined, which is why I admire it, but it didn't connect with me on the same level as, like Marty Supreme or even One Battle After Another. I have very little to add, about what you said about Skarsgård. Absolutely incredible performance here. I love how multifaceted the character is. He's not a stereotypical villain. He's worthy of sympathy, but also worthy of some disgust. I love that complexity, and I think that's one of the film's greatest strengths. I was very engaged with the film from start to finish, and I also really love the ending. Again, I reference this when talking about Hamnet. I think they're doing similar things, and I was much more impressed by how this film handled the ending, especially that final scene without spoiling anything. But just thinking about the way the characters in this film revisit past events and using art as a mechanism for healing, I thought was really smart. I thought it was well earned, and it was very conceptually elegant. I was really impressed by this film. Loved the cinematography and how clean and composed it was. Same with the score, the performances. There were no weak links here, right? And for that reason, I'm landing on a 4.5 out of 5. Excellent film. It didn't, totally hit me emotionally. It didn't pack that wallop necessarily, although I was very impressed with it when it ended.
Yeah, I think I talked about this a little bit, when we did the year in review episode. But, like one of my favorite themes, I guess, right, is the idea of every villain, right, being somebody on whom villainy was perpetrated. And the film engages with this facet of Gustav, Stellan Skarsgård's character, really artfully by letting you see what a horrible father he is for the first act and for, a sizable chunk of the second act before giving you those, those kind of little glimpses into the lives of his forebears and his life as a child and how, things like the Nazi occupation affected kind of his upbringing and the experiences of his parents and all those kinds of things. And it's just, it's really powerful. It's a really powerful story. And I think that has a lot of total and thematic resonance with the optimism of the ending, right? To your point, like this is really a story about how art can be used as a salve for wounds, to help folks who should love each other to see past the things that they really hate about each other. And, for me, this is just very aligned with my general values. And I found it really powerful. I think it's an incredible film.
Now it's time for us to move on to our 9th film of the night, Sinners. I'm going to hand it over to my co-host, Mike the Fab.
Sinners was directed by Ryan Coogler, a director whom I really love. I think you really love him as well, right? And it stars Michael B. Jordan, Haley Steinfeld, Miles Caton in his debut role. He is incredible in the film. Jack O'Connell, Wunmi Mosaku, Jamie Lawson. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing her name. Omar Benson Miller and Delroy Lindo. And this film is about these two brothers, the Moore brothers, Elijah Smoke and Elias Stack Moore, both of whom are depicted by Michael B. Jordan playing dual roles, returning home to Jim Crow era Clarksdale, Missouri in 1932 after 7 years in Chicago working for the mob. Using money they stole from the aforementioned mob, they purchased a sawmill and converted it into a juke joint. On opening night, their younger cousin Sammy's, this is the character who's portrayed by Caton, Sammy's music is so transcendent that it attracts a group of vampires who ravage the partiers. Mike, what did you think of Sinners?
So this is a film that we watched in IMAX in a fully packed movie theater, and it was a wonderful IMAX theatrical experience. However, here's a possible another hot take here. I don't think it's Best Picture material, and I am surprised by how much awards buzz it's received. It was a great blockbuster experience, but I guess I'll just get into my thoughts here. I think that when it came to that IMAX viewing experience, I think that the communal viewing aspect amplified the impact of the film. I love its sweeping IMAX cinematography and the expansive score. As event filmmaking, it works really well. It works better than F1, the movie, that's for damn sure. And it plays big. It's summer movie craftsmanship at a very high level. I love everyone in the film, but particularly Michael B. Jordan in his dual roles as Smoke and Stack and Delroy Lindo. Fucking love Delroy Lindo. So I'm happy they're getting buzz. However, when it comes to the film structure, I thought that the film's first half was a lot stronger than the back half of the film. The first half, before they actually establish the juke joint and have their big opening night party, I thought was way better. When it's focusing on the Smokestack brothers returning to Clarksdale, building a business, reclaiming their space. It's very community-focused storytelling. It's very character-driven, and there's so much cultural specificity there. I loved entering that world. It felt very focused and grounded and thematically coherent. And in the second half, when we get to the party at the juke joint and then that inevitable vampire chaos, it felt so messy and chaotic when it pivots genres. I think it lost a lot of its thematic clarity. I thought the narrative became messy and the horror elements overwhelmed the earlier tension that the film had so carefully built up. It felt like an elevated From Dusk Till Dawn. Have you ever seen that film?
Yes. I mean, listen, I'm going to reference it when I talk to.
Great.
I completely agree.
It's the same fucking thing.
Yeah, I agree.
So what?
And I do not like From Dusk Till Dawn. I do not like that movie.
I liked it, but I was lukewarm on it. I liked Sinners more, but I was just thinking to myself, what are we getting here that we haven't seen before? And the fulcrum moment of this film is the big centerpiece when you get the montage in the juke joint where you're kind of drifting through black music from all of these different historical eras. And you can tell that is what Ryan Coogler cares the most about. But then there are 45 minutes left where you have to see the big vampire fight and all of that kind of, action. And I kind of felt like, oh, we're only an hour and 20 into this film, but like it said the thing it wants to say.
Sort of know what's going to happen.
And now it's winding down. Right. And then you get to the big climactic action set piece. And I don't know if I said it on the podcast, but I've certainly said it to you before. It reminded me of the fight from Anchorman. It was just so like sloppy and chaotic and cartoonish, and it felt underwhelming after all of that buildup. So I don't know. I just think the ideas didn't fully cohere. The vampire element didn't integrate cleanly into the narrative, and it's ambitious but diffuse. So I'm landing on 4 out of 5 for Sinners. Really good film. I enjoyed it, but it felt derivative in its genre turn, and I just didn't think it. I don't know. I just didn't understand why it was up here as one of the supposed 10 best films of the year. Mike, what did you think about Sinners?
I think it's going to win Best Picture.
Yeah, honestly. It's getting a lot of fucking buzz. Yeah, I agree.
I do. And I generally agree with you about it, but I think it's probably going to win. Like if you ask me at the end of this podcast to tell you like what I think is going to win Best Picture, I think it's probably going to be Sinners. I certainly think Michael B. Jordan deserves to win Best Actor.
Oh, he's great.
I think it's an almost unbelievable performance. Listen, I really like Sinners, but I completely agree with you. I remember watching the first hour of it before the vampire stuff started happening, and I was locked the fuck in.
It rules.
What an incredible film. It's so cool. Just the sense of place, the time, how captivating Michael B. Jordan is, how good a job he does both in the performance as well as they've done from a special effects perspective, making that work. That's not an easy thing to do, right? I mean, we watched for the podcast the Alto Nights last year, and that movie's dumb as fuck.
Reverse shot. Yeah.
It is not easy to have an actor playing dual roles, even one as magnetic and talented as Michael B. Jordan, and have it work as well as his performance does in Sinners. And he deserves all of the awards for that performance. But when all the vampire stuff starts happening, it completely falls apart for me. I do think there's probably some kind of racial allegory in there with the vampires that probably has some profundity to it that I'm just missing. But I just fucking hate vampires, honestly. I really do. Like, I hate From Dusk Till Dawn. I really dislike that movie. I really don't like this kind of just like film that's just about what you're talking about, right? Like the Anchorman fight, like that kind of like really grotesque carnage, like quasi horror adjacent, but really far too fantastical to actually be very horrifying. And that ultimately sucks all of the life and drama and power out of what I think are some really, really well written and powerful characters and some really amazing performances. And, yeah, I don't know. The second half for me really did not work very well at all. I think I'm a little warmer on it than you are. I am going to give it 4.5 stars for a few reasons. I think Goranson's score is really, really nice. I think the cinematography is really special. I think Michael B. Jordan's performance is the best performance of the year. It's probably the best performance that we've seen for several years, I think, at least that I can think of. And I mean, it's fun, it's a fun movie. It's a great IMAX experience, but I too feel a little out of step with the popular consensus on this film. I do think it's going to win Best Picture, and I'll be disappointed when it does. There are several things this year that I liked more.
Yeah, I agree. I do think it's going to win, especially after how well it performed at the BAFTAs, but whatever.
And give it to Jordan. I mean, the guy is fucking incredible. He is an amazing actor, and this is his best performance in a career of storied performances. I love the guy, but the vampire stuff for me, it's just not for me.
It's From Dusk Till Dawn. It's the same fucking movie. Okay, well, on that note, it's time to move on to our 10th and final film of the night, Train Dreams. Train Dreams is a sweeping American period drama directed by Clint Bentley and starring Joel Edgerton. Adapted from Dennis Johnson's novella, the film follows a quiet laborer in the early 20th century as he navigates profound personal loss against the backdrop of a rapidly industrializing American West. Blending lyrical narration with expansive natural cinematography, the film reflects on time, masculinity, grief, and the transformation of the American landscape. It earned strong critical notices for its visual storytelling and elegiac tone, emerged as a late-season awards contender, and ultimately secured a Best Picture nomination. Mike, what did you think of Train Dreams?
I love Train Dreams so much. Did you know that?
Yeah, I think you spilled the beans on that in Frankenstein in a way that I wanted to just yell, shut the fuck up at you, but what can you do, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know people, right?
What do you mean it's hard to know people? You knew we were going to do an episode about this.
No, I mean, for you, it's hard to know people. I'm not saying how can I be blamed for doing that? I'm just saying well, I mean, you kind of ruined it. I was just making a joke about how brave and strong you are to deal with the ways that I annoy you.
It is honestly really, listen, if listeners knew about all the times that you went on your weird 20-minute long rants against me that were conveniently held immediately after we stopped recording these episodes, then they would actually unironically agree with what you just said. I am actually very grateful for dealing with you, but tell me more about what you thought about Train Dreams.
Oh, I love everything about Train Dreams. I'd never seen any films directed by this Clint Bentley gentleman. Had you ever seen anything directed by him?
No.
But I really think that he does a lot. I understand from talking to Caroline, who read the novella on which this was based, with some pretty Spartan source material to weave what I think is an almost transcendently profound depiction of the truth of human life. Right? I mean, in this story, we see the character of Robert kind of travel through time, essentially, right, from pre-trains to the moon landing, and that is the historical backdrop for his life. The specific social justice experiences that he encounters with the anti-Chinese racism and all that kind of stuff, the specifics are completely irrelevant to the universality of his lived experience. And I think that thematically, that is an almost unbelievably powerful message just about as the talking heads say, right? Same as it ever was. And I just find that almost unspeakably profound. And beyond that, I just love Joel Edgerton so much. I think that this performance is really something special on his part. I love Felicity Jones. I think both of them are incredible in their roles. And this film deploys some really incredible actors in very small roles that really play, I think, a much larger role in a memory of the film than they actually were. Like, how many minutes of screen time does William H. Macy have in this film? Maybe 7 minutes of screen time. Carrie Condon probably has 3.5 minutes of screen time. But their performances and those characters are deployed so artfully and so thoughtfully. And I really think that it's a testament to just the power of this script and of the casting. And the cinematography is really something very special. You know, the way that nature is used as a backdrop to kind of suggest, as I alluded to earlier, thematically, the universality of the human experience in a way that is for me almost impossible to describe the power of, was really something very, very special for me. And I love Bryce Dessner's score. What an incredible score. Absolutely amazing music. I listen to a lot, not quite as much as I listen to the Marty Supreme soundtrack. And I also really love that this movie has a song. I think the Train Dreams song by Nick Cave. I mean, I love Nick Cave. I'm a huge Nick Cave fan. That's definitely like extremely my kind of like really sad emo shit. Like especially like this particular era of Nick Cave music that I think he's hearkening to. Like this is kind of like 90s and early 2000s Nick Cave sound. I think is something that I really enjoyed, and you know, it made me bawl almost as hard as Jay Kelly made me bawl. It's definitely a big tear face diary entry for me in my in my Letterboxd diary. And so yeah, I absolutely love Train Dreams. I give it 5 stars. So we're actually getting 3 5-star Best Picture nominees
5-star films. Wow.
Yep.
A third 5-star film has hit the podcast.
Yep. There you go. What about you, Mike? What did you think of Train Dreams?
Yeah, you know, I have to say, before we started recording this, I did see that wife of the pod, friend of the pod, Caroline, also very enthusiastically gave Train Dreams 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. So I'm just going to say right here and now that I strongly disagree with the both of you. I did not think this film was nearly that good, and I'm kind of shocked to see you both give it 5 out of 5. I liked it. I didn't love it. I thought the craft was respectable, but it's already fading from my memory. I watched it a few weeks ago, and I honestly found it kind of emotionally distant and ultimately forgettable. For context, when I had read about this film before watching it, I read a lot of opinions saying that it felt very indebted to the films of Terrence Malick, but I haven't seen any of his films, so I don't have anything to say there. However, the other film that I saw it compared to was the 2007 film, The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford. Now, reading that actually inspired me to watch that film before watching Train Dreams. And I think that in doing so, I actually hurt my perception of Train Dreams when I finally got around to watching it. I feel like Train Dreams is very derivative of Jesse James. It feels like it's attempting to do similar things in a lot of ways, but executes them less effectively in my mind. It feels like a softened, more mainstream version of that story. It's doing the whole elegiac American myth thing, but in a less daring, shorter, more compact, more palatable kind of way, which, I mean, it seems like it was very successful based on the fact that you bawled and Caroline gave it a 5 out of 5. One of my biggest criticisms of this film is with its narration. I assume you love the narration based on your 5-star.
Narration.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going to shout out.
The narration is just from the novel, just so you know. He's just reading the book.
Sure. I don't give a fuck. This is a movie. I'm gonna shout out friend of the pod, Chase, one of our most loyal citizens of the Nero Nation. I read his review after I watched the film, and I wholeheartedly agree with the review in its entirety. But both he and I felt that the voiceover was both overused, too expository, and too literal. This whole disconnected voice of God kind of narration, I think it's worthwhile when it is telling us something we don't know, or it's inverting what we're watching on screen. And in the case of this film, it honestly just felt very redundant and regressive in a way that distanced me from what I was actually watching in the events of the film. It was just constantly reminding me that I was watching an adaptation of a novella, and it created a lack of intimacy with Joel Edgerton's protagonist that it really detracted from the film for me. So I felt like I was just being presented a story rather than being immersed in it. To its credit, I love the cinematography. It was certainly among the best looking nominees. I probably put it right up there with, Marty Supreme and Hamnet in terms of its cinematography. So no issue there. But Joel Edgerton, he gave a solid performance. He was convincing, but I honestly found his performance kind of familiar. I feel like we've seen him do this kind of character before, and I found it competent rather than transformative. I don't know. It didn't linger on me after I watched it. It felt a little awards baity. It was a good film. I didn't find it particularly memorable, and I'm giving it a 3.5 out of 5.
No, 3.5 out of 5 is what you give all the movies I really love that you don't love.
Yeah, I thought it was a good, not great film. So it gets a good, not great rating. I'm sure Caroline will write some sort of letter defending Train Dreams' honor, and I'll be duty bound to read it on this podcast in 10 episodes when we finally have space to do so.
And we extend that invite to all citizens of De Niro Nation.
Oh, yeah.
I think that we each shared our handful of hot takes here on this episode. And I personally, I'm sure you would as well, would love to hear listeners' thoughts on our takes on these films so far.
Yeah. And on that note, Mike, I think it's time for us to do our final rankings of these Best Picture nominees. Would you like to start by saying a bit about just how you felt about this year's nominees in general and doing your ranking in ascending order?
Sure. And when you say ascending order, you mean starting with the lowest, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Overall, I thought this was a pretty strong year. Really. I mean, I really loathed Hamnet and Frankenstein. But other than that, I really liked most of the films that were nominated this year. And so when I think back to the years that we've watched the nominees from over the past few years, I think of this as really an unusually strong year. I'm excited to hear whether you agree. But in any case, here is my ranking in ascending order. It's Hamnet, Frankenstein, F1, The Secret Agent, Sinners, One Battle After Another, Begonia, Sentimental Value, Train Dreams, and Marty Supreme.
Wow. Train. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. I get it. It's consistent with what you said.
Yep. What about you?
Yeah, in coming up with all of these ratings, my thoughts on all of these films, I think it's very clear that I'm drawn to movies that feel, alive, like very tense, propulsive. Like craft matters to me, but it isn't enough to elevate a film to that 5-star level. That's why Marty Supreme ultimately still stayed at number 1 for me. It operates on that frequency that I'm just totally tuned into, very anxious and heightened and emotionally unstable in a very purposeful kind of way. By contrast, I'm wary of movies that feel overly literary or consciously prestigious. Things like period dramas and these sorts of solemn adaptations don't automatically move me. Like I can admire them, but that doesn't mean I feel connected to them. So ultimately, the list that I'm going to give reflects a preference for energy over prestige, urgency over reverence, and emotional voltage over composure. I respect austere filmmaking, but that's not going to get these films to the top of the rankings for me. So, in ascending order, my list is Frankenstein, F1 the Movie, Train Dreams, The Secret Agent, Hamnet, Sinners, Sentimental Value, Begonia, One Battle After Another, and Marty Supreme.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
But what did you think of the year overall?
Oh, yeah, I thought it was a good year overall, especially compared to the last few years since we started watching all of the nominees. I think this is probably the strongest year since 2023.
I agree.
There's a lot of good stuff in here, and I'm very excited to watch the Oscars and see what actually wins. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it this year. It was a great year for movies.
Well, fantastic. I thought that was a great discussion about all the Best Picture nominees. It's a shame we didn't do this last year, but the podcast was young and we weren't thinking about these sorts of things. But it's time to move things over. We have 2 letters from loyal citizens of De Niro Nation. If you want to write in, that email address is ourherodeniro@gmail.com. The first letter is from Andrew in response to our episode about Heat. Andrew says, when you said that line, I'm not lonely, but I am alone, it immediately reminded me of the Dragonfly Waitress story, as told on the episode of the podcast. And I then knew exactly that Mike was about to tell it with what he said next. He got most of it, but I can add a couple details. First off, I didn't have a crush on her. That was the first time I'd met her, but she was attractive. I'd made some joke about being the third wheel like always. I don't remember exactly the conversation, but she reacted with an "aw" or something like that. I responded that I was just joking, and she doubled down saying it made her sad. Again, I don't remember exactly, but the 3 of us at the table thought she was signaling potential interest. So Caroline and Mike crafted that message for me, but in fact, she never did contact me. To put a fun cap on the story, I saw her on Tinder later and saw her Instagram, and she'd posted a picture of the receipt with my number covered. I've since been married and divorced, so Dragonfly Waitress, if you're listening to our hero De Niro and live in upstate Georgia now, I still have the same number. Andrew. Wow, I didn't read the full letter, so kind of a bombshell.
That is an incredible letter. One of my favorites we've received from the whole podcast, I think. That was that really added a layer of joy to a story that I think about from my life. Thank you, Andrew, for writing in and sharing that.
Yeah, I don't know. That's crazy that she took a picture. It's one thing because you hypothesized she might not even have seen the number, right? You do the thing, whatever you're not thinking, you toss it out. Who cares? The fact that she took the time to take a picture and post it to her Instagram,
but didn't text you.
Oh my God, Andrew! I think when you were on Tinder and you saw that Instagram, I think you should have just followed her on Instagram, slid into those DMs and said,
I agree. Hey,
I'm a receipt guy. Right.
Yep.
Either delete that photo or let me take you out to a reasonably priced dinner, at a restaurant other than Dragonfly.
Well,
probably not Dragonfly.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, that's
amazing letter. Yep.
Yeah, it was a really good letter. Hey, thanks for sending in that additional information, Andrew. And we have one other, well, I'm calling it a letter. It's not technically a letter, but it's a YouTube comment from Jeremy Page Q4P, one of our loyal soldiers on the YouTube front lines. Thank you for commenting under our Heat episode. Jeremy writes, I saw this in the theater when it came out. I specifically remember thinking that this was going to end up being a slow burn classic in about 20 years. It's remarkable how much of this movie's DNA can be found in The Dark Knight. I think I remember Nolan citing it as a direct influence. You don't really notice it at first because Ledger occupied most everyone's headspace, but as a huge fan of both Mann and Nolan, I began to pick up on it after a few rewatches. Heat is all over The Dark Knight, but in a way that reminds you that Nolan knows the good stuff when he sees it.
That's a great note. I never really thought of that connection. I don't know if you have, Mike, but that really is so true, right? I do think that Ledger takes up so much of our thinking about The Dark Knight, and kind of just the general popular consciousness about that film, especially in light of his untimely death. But if you set aside the Joker character and Ledger's really incredible performance, it is a very Heat-esque movie, isn't it? That's an incredible point. Thank you for writing.
Yeah, Jeremy, thank you for the comment. I definitely, I'm a big Heat head. I'm a big Dark Knight head. So I definitely read about those connections that were deliberate by Nolan when he was crafting The Dark Knight. And I just love thinking about The Dark Knight. So yeah, when you think about the film's structure, the fact that it is just these two larger than life forces, coming together in that inevitable clash, even the way that they both have similar fulcrum points. In Heat, you have the diner conversation, which we covered in great detail in our episode pretty recently. And then in The Dark Knight, you have that scene of Batman and the Joker in the interrogation room. And it's just, they are by far the best scenes of both of those films. They're just getting those two characters together and just espousing their personal philosophies is totally electrifying filmmaking. I absolutely love both of them. They're both 5-star films through and through. And I love the fact that Nolan saw one of the greatest crime films of all time and said, yeah, I'm going to take some of that for my Batman film. And you know what? He made the best fucking Batman film ever. So good instinct, Nolan. Yep. Yeah, good fucking instinct. The Dark Knight Rises kind of crumbles under its own weight, and I thought The Batman, starring Robert Pattinson, was kind of overlong and dull in points, but The Dark Knight rules. So yeah, absolutely appreciate that note. And thank you for sticking with us on our YouTube page. That's youtube.com/it might be /Our Hero De Niro. I don't know. You go into YouTube and you search for Our Hero De Niro, you're going to find the podcast.
You go to allmylinks.com/Our Hero De Niro and you're going to see a link to the YouTube page. So
excellent point. Normally at this point, we would roll for next week's film, but we actually rolled in our The War with Grandpa episode. So we already know that next week we're going to be watching the 1993 film Mad Dog and Glory. Can't wait for that. So I guess on that note, it's time to wrap this Oscars special up. Mike, how'd you feel about this episode? You're talking about 10 movies.
I'm really glad we did it. I had a lot of fun. I think it's really fun to switch up from talking about the De Niro films. And I really especially enjoy, I watch a lot more new films than you do, but doing the Oscars every year these past few years has forced me to watch, I think, even more new films than I ordinarily would have. And I really appreciate that as a practice that we take part in. And I think making a podcast episode about it is really fun. So I'm really happy we did this.
Yeah, I agree. It really turns it into an event. And I think it is good for me to kind of force myself to watch those big films from the previous years, kind of stay current with it and not just watch things from the 1970s through 1990s. So I'm glad that we kind of turned this into an event, and I'm really excited to see what actually takes home awards this year.
Me too, but it's going to be Sinners.
Yeah, probably will be. Well, on that bombshell, it's time to wrap this episode up. I'd like to take this moment to thank all the loyal citizens of De Niro Nation who listen week in and week out. I'd especially like to thank Caroline for our wonderful podcast artwork. Please follow Mike and I on Letterboxd. I'm Mike back at you, and he's Mike the Fab. Rate us 5 stars in your podcast app of choice. We desperately need it. We want it so badly.
Desperately.
Email us with any questions or comments you have at ourherodeniro@gmail.com. Follow us on social media. It's so easy. Just go to allmylinks.com/ourherodeniro. And we'll be back at you next week with an episode about Mad Dog and Glory.
Thanks, everybody.